Hello everyone, Xeno What If here. Bring in Season 2 Part 13 of What If the Transformers Were in My Hero Academia. Link in the description of the fanfiction of this What If. Listen here YouTube. I do not own anything and this is not a scam. Chapter 25, Cavalry Dino Might. Starscream had to admit, he had been pleasantly surprised so far. Of course, he hadn't been exactly all that keen on watching this sports festival when Swift first suggested it to Megatron. After all, doing something for that bucket-headed windbag was one thing, but watching a bunch of human younglings run around and sweat all day wasn't exactly his blend of motor oil. But, once the event actually kicked off, he slowly grew ever more intrigued, especially given the strong start of the race. Several students immediately jumped out at him as having powerful quirks, and not just the group who follow the Autobots everywhere. The young red and white-haired kid with the burn mark across his left eye, Starscream believed his name was Todoroki. He in particular had an impressively strong power. Creating ice so sturdy and cold that it could fell a giant drone without much difficulty was certainly something to keep an optic on. But then, there was the wild-haired boy, Bakugo, with his explosion quirk. Both were very destructive, but the blonde's was no doubt even more so. He was easily able to keep up with Todoroki, and cause plenty of damage along the way. And then there was the gray-skinned girl, Kiryu, who was able to change her body parts into ones with different reptilian aspects. At least Starscream assumed they were reptilian. What's more, he had noticed that the teenagers who had joined the Autobots were placing well in particular, with all of them making it into the top 20 spots at the finish. Of course, the green-haired boy and his punk rocker companion had placed first, and now it was quite evident that they were everyone's target going into the second round, especially with 10 million points on their heads. Ooh, now this has become quite investing, to be sure. Starscream rubbed his hands together eagerly as he saw the student body staring daggers into the duo. The Autobots, pets have become the center of attention. Even their own companions are beginning to turn on them. Ahaha. Bahaha. Blastwave joined in on the laughter, smacking his knee as he kept a hold of a barrel of oil in his other hand. Oh, that slaps me on the knee. Blastwave must concede, he had his worries about this sporting festival, but this has been very good entertainment so far. Indeed, mein Freund. Flatline concurred, dragging 2 fingers along his chin as he stared up at the screen. They say children seem to be fairly experienced when it comes to situations such as these. Their powers have proven to be quite useful getting them these far, though now it seems as if they are only now coming to the difficult part. Swift leaned back in her chair, placing her hands behind her head as she reclined. Hey, you said it, Doc. She smirked as every student began gravitating away from Izuku and Kyoka, leaving them by themselves. And for those two, I'd say that they're not gonna be all that popular in this round. Kinda the opposite, actually. Barricade noted, eyeing Swift as she peeked one optic open at him. Sure, no one will wanna team up with him, but they'll all be going after them once the whole thing starts. He smirked as well while Izuku and Kyoka kept their heads decidedly low. And, because of that, there'll be no hope for him going much farther, I think. From the back, Thundercracker stepped up, crossing his arms as he tilted his head curiously. I dunno, Barricade. If being around these humans for a while has taught me anything, it's that they're crafty little beings. He craned his head down to the officer, who furrowed his metal brow back up at him. After all, it's that craftiness that proved useful to them in that rescue miss. Starscream stood up from his chair abruptly, raising a sharp finger in front of his brother's mouth to silence him. We agreed to never speak of that again, Thundercracker, remember? Thundercracker deadpanned and rolled his optics. Oh, yeah, right. Grr, I'm just hoping we'll get some more violence soon. Skywarp fumed, glaring down as he kept his arms crossed, digging his fingers into his arms. You've got no idea how much I wanna see these kids throw down. The Blue Seeker sighed at his brother's violent attitude. I get the feeling you're a big fan of that Bakugo kid, aren't ya, Warp? Skywarp gave a hard laugh at that. MHA. Of course. That Bakugo kid had the right idea back on the minefield. Take out your enemy with force if necessary so they don't reach their goal. He found the blonde bomb burster in the crowd, seeing the ever-present glare on his face. Gotta say, he may be learnin' to be a hero, but he's got the look for a Decepticon. Starscream took notice of that as well. It was evident that the young organic seemed to harbor plenty of pent-up aggression, though what it was directed to, he had no clue. HMPH, indeed, though his apparent anger could cloud his judgment. The second-in-command rested his chin on his palm, propping his elbow on his chair. HMPH, he's also at liability to be a loose cannon, so that's another problem. Don't worry, Carino. Nitro waved off as she and Shadow Striker kept their sights on the screen. I've got a feeling that this next round will show us exactly what all these Hero Course students are all about. And hey, don't forget to keep an eye on those 1B kids, EH. She reached up to the screen and zoomed in on several of them, including the Kirishima copycat. They may not be as impressive, but seeing them in the race. Something tells me that 1A's got some competition. Perhaps. Shadow Striker sneered at the two first-place contenders. Though in my opinion, if those two try to pull another stunt such as the one Zay did in Z race, I doubt Zay will last long in Z competition. The sniper gave a shrug. But, I suppose that is Z favorable outcome, given their association with the Autobots. HMPH, yeah, as far as I'm concerned, the bot brats can all fail. Skywarp agreed. Starscream laced his fingers together as Midnight began to speak again. We shall have to wait and see what fate has in store for them, it seems. Gird your loins and prepare for your next test, students. Midnight announced as she once again raised her flag up toward the screen, pointing to the cavalry battle sign. Those of you at the top will suffer the most in the cavalry battle, make no mistake. Of course, that's something you'll hear over and over again at UUA, so do me a favor, she gave a spin and whipped her flag toward the students. And show us all exactly what Plus Ultra means in this next event. Back down in the crowd of students, everyone was staring at the first-place duo, already coveting their 10 million points, no doubt. Izuku felt like he had shrunk considerably, doing his best not to meet anyone's eyes. Kyoka. Yeah, the punk rocker gulped. We're in trouble. Yup, pretty much. Kyoka nodded, peering over her shoulder at the boy. You doing okay? Izuku took a deep breath, trying to collect himself. Why yes, just, having some minor flashbacks to middle school. He furrowed his brow as he was reminded of similar situations from back then, though thankfully none of his peers hated him here, aside from Kachan, obviously. Things have changed so much since junior high. Izuku thought to himself, but I'm still a target. We're only in first now thanks to some strategic thinking and good luck. He spared a glimpse up to the stands, where he saw All Might staring back down at him. What they say is true. It's hard being at the top, isn't it, All Might? Once more, Midnight's voice echoed throughout the whole stadium as she began explaining how the event would proceed. Alright, allow me to establish some rules. The game itself will last for 15 minutes, and individual point values of your teammates will be added together to reach your team total. A picture of a white headband with red numbers appeared on the screen. Everyone will know how much you're worth thanks to your headbands. Swipe as many headbands as you can to raise your team's score. Once again, the image changed, this time to All Might wearing several headbands around his neck. Stolen headbands must be worn from the neck up, so the more you steal, the harder it'll be to manage them. Wow, so they're gonna make it more difficult for people who really need to catch up. Ochako commented. And another thing, even if your headband gets stolen or your team falls down, you can keep playing until time is up. You can use your quirks as much as you like, but keep in mind, Midnight whipped her flag, making sure everyone's attention was on her. Make a team fall on purpose and I'll slap you with a red card. You'll be disqualified. With a confident smile, Midnight nodded to all of them. Now, you've got 15 minutes to build your teams. I recommend you get started. The moment those words came from Midnight's lips, everyone began to search for their teams, all while decidedly gravitating away from Izuku and Kyoka. The two were ultimately left by themselves in the middle, the aggregating teenagers, which created a sudden feeling of abandonment within them. Wow, not even our friends wanna team up with us. Kyoka noted. Yeah, guess we'll have to take the initiative in forming our team. Izuku took a glance around, seeing a certain blonde and tailed individual standing nearby. Hey, Ojiro, how do you feel about URK? Sorry, Ojiro said as he awkwardly shuffled off. Izuku's jaw dropped, his skin turning pale at the quick rejection. Oh god, it's going to be that bad. Apparently, yes. Kyoka's hands went to her hips, breathing a frustrated sigh. Man, I'm starting to wonder if it was a good idea to go for the gold. Her eyes trailed up, seeing that even Bakugo was garnering attention from classmates to form a team, including Mina. TCH, traitor. Hey, don't blame Mina, okay. Izuku placed a hand on Kyoka's shoulder, hoping to calm her down. Kachan's a hothead, yes, but he's also in third place and has 150 points. And considering how versatile his quirk is, I'm not surprised that people are trying to join up with him. He noticed, however, that Bakugo seemed to have no idea what to do about the situation. That said, he's never relied on teamwork much in the past, so we'll see how this goes for him. Wait, remind me what your quirks are again. Katsuki said, trying to hide the desperation in his voice. And your names. The gathered group around the explosive blonde were all left gobsmacked when they heard that. Gah, are you serious? Mina's eye twitched in disbelief. We're your classmates. We've been in the same class for over 2 months now and you're seriously asking that? He can't be serious. Shiro muttered as he and Sato eyed him curiously. Katsuki was about to retort when a familiar voice cut through the air to him. Yo, Bakugo. He spun his head around to see a certain spiky redhead coming over, waving as he flashed a sharp-toothed grin at him. I was gonna try Todoroki, but he's already picked a group. He balled a fist and gave a thumbs up. So hey, I think we should team up. With a bored gaze, Bakugo simply responded, hey, dumb hair. My name is Kirishima. Eijiro snapped, slightly annoyed that the guy he saw as his friend didn't even know his name. Does he seriously not remember me telling him back during the USJ attack? He pointed between his and Bakugo's hair. And my hair's not that different than yours, either. Katsuki simply huffed a response, which Kirishima brushed off to get back on the subject at hand. Anyway, I get the feeling that you wanna be the rider, which means you're gonna need a strong front horse who won't be hurt by your blasts. Eijiro smirked and hardened up his arm. That'd be me. Bakugo appeared interested, but didn't seem too convinced yet. I'll need someone with guts. My quirk was made for this. I've got ya covered, man. Kirishima smashed his hardened fists together eagerly. Let's go charging into battle together. Now that made Bakugo's eyes widen, and it was then that Kirishima could tell, he was speaking his language. 10 million, bring it. And just like that, Bakugo put on a smirk of anticipation, one that was dangerous to see on him. Man, Kirishima too, huh? Kyoka crossed her arms, seeing the two wild-haired boys broker their alliance. Guess I should have expected that, but still, he could have at least considered us. She craned her head around, trying to find some of their other friends before spotting Ochako. Unfortunately, she had also found a group, one made up of Ojiro and Boy from 1B. And they were being led by, the purple-haired kid. And Ochako decided to join up with Shinso. Weird. Izuku noticed that as well, and couldn't help but tilt his head. Of course, he had a feeling that Shinso from the General Studies course would search for people with powerful quirks to help him out, though the fact that he recruited Ochako in particular was surprising. Yeah, knowing her, I would have figured she'd at least try to join us first. Kyoka shook her head. Hey, if she wants to help out the General Studies guy, then that's cool, I guess. She set her gaze back onto her partner. But we should really focus on gathering people for our group, ya know. Hehehe. Oh, perfect, you two are still alone. And you guys are the stars, who could have predicted? Izuku and Kyoka did a double take the familiar voice, only to immediately see Mei getting right up in their faces. Team up with me, my friends in first place. Ah, Mei. Where did you come from? Kyoka exclaimed. Mei lifted up her goggles with a giggle. I've just been keeping to the back, no big deal. She thrust her upper body toward the two, her excitement growing as each second passed. But now, you guys seem to be having it rough, so it's time to use my friend's newfound fame to my advantage while helping you out. Izuku was understandably confused, but at the same time, grateful for the help. That's rather straightforward, but thank you, Hatsume. We could definitely use the help. Mei's eyes gleamed with anticipation. I knew you'd say that. She zipped straight up to them as she kept going on, speaking almost a mile a minute. Of course, if I team up with you guys, then I'll be in the spotlight with you. Part of the team that everyone is keeping their eyes on. And again, she came closer. That way, my super cute little babies will inevitably be seen by the big company CEOs who are tuning into the sports festival. And once more, May closed in, getting right in their personal spaces. And following that line of reasoning, this is the best way for me and the marvelous gadgets that Red and I made to get recruited, MMPH. MMPH. Okay, you need to pump the brakes there, May. Kyoka said, clamping her hand over the mad genius mouth. But you really think your inventions will help? Izuku added hopefully. The pink-haired girl pulled her head back and offered a smile. Of course, they will. Here, take a look. May reached around behind her and pulled out a rather massive case, opening it up to reveal all kinds of gadgets and stuff. Red and I have been making equipment designed specifically to help heroes deal with their quirks and enhance their skills. She reached in and pulled out 2 pieces in particular. Jackie, I'm betting you'll love this. Huh, what's, but Kyoka trailed off when she saw the inventions, her eyes widening at their familiarity. They were the mini wrist-mounted subwoofers that she kept on her hero costume, only they had been decked out with some enhancements. Whoa, these are the sonic blasters I keep on my gloves, did you upgrade them? May gave her a wink. A little bit, yeah. I've maximized their sonic output so now your blast should be much more powerful. She pointed to a small dial on the back of each speaker. And you can even control the power, just by twisting this little dial here. Wanna give it a try during the cavalry battle? Huh, you bet I do. Kyoka jacked herself into the subwoofers, the items now hanging off her earlobes. Thanks. Izuku, meanwhile, noticed something else in the briefcase. Hey, wait a second, he reached in and pulled out a metal pack of some sort, one with large holes on the underside. This seems familiar, isn't this the same kind of jetpack that the Buster hero, Airjet uses? Indeed it is, May confirmed, taking hold of the pack. Though of course, I added my own special twists. Wow, I'm actually a big fan of Airjet. Izuku beamed enthusiastically. May definitely seemed to share that excitement, for certain. I know, right, he's so underrated. She put the jetpack back in the case and closed it up, giving a sigh. So, now that I've shown you what I have to offer, what you say? Teammates. Hey, as if there were any doubt. Kyoka confirmed, with Izuku giving his own approval as well. The punk rocker then went back into thinking mode, knowing that they'd need at least one more member. But now we need someone else, someone who can be a reliable horse. Izuku hummed in agreement. Right, with your quirk and mine along with Hatsume's gadgets, we've got a solid build going. But if we add one more, however, his eyebrows shot up when an idea entered his mind. Wait, I think I have an idea. Without hesitation, Izuku spun around and began marching over to Tenya. Kyoka and May followed before the greenette called to his spectacled friend, Iida. Tenya peered over his shoulder and was met with a beaming Izuku and May, their eyes bright as they seemed to shine with a hopeful aura. Meanwhile, Kyoka was standing normally, keeping her arms crossed. Yes. Kyoka smirked and rolled her eyes. Dude, Izuku's got a plan. You wanna listen or what? I suppose it wouldn't hurt. Tenya turned his body so he was facing them fully. What is this plan of yours, Midoriya? Well, here's how I see it. Izuku extended a hand over to May, keeping his sights on Tenya. The 3 of us would be horses with you in the front, Iida. Between my quirk and May's hover souls, we should be able to keep up with you and maneuver really easily. He nodded over to Kyoka. And with Kyoka as our rider, not only would she be able to steal headbands easily with her jacks, but she'd also be able to act as defense with them as well. No one would be able to catch us, but we'd be able to nab any headbands of anyone who'd try. The idea definitely made Kyoka rather excited. Ooh, not a bad idea, Izuku. May pumped her fists eagerly. Heck yeah, we'd be untouchable. A bold strategy, to be sure. Tenya concurred, only to lower his head. But I'm sorry. I'm afraid I must refuse. The sudden news was enough to take all 3 of them aback, though the class representative was quick to reassure them. Make no mistake, this is not to be taken as an insult. You are all great friends. His focus shifted primarily to Izuku. But, since this all started, I've been losing to you. And if I continue to follow you, I'll never get stronger. His gaze turned serious as he locked eyes with his friend. Bakugo and Todoroki have challenged you already, but they aren't the only ones who see you as a rival. And with that, Tenya walked off, right over to Todoroki's group, which consisted of himself, Momo, and Denki. Midoriya, I'll try my best to defeat you, and that's a promise. Kyoka's lips parted in shock, the sight of her other best friend on an enemy team leaving her in disbelief. S02, Yao Momo. Momo sucked in her lips, feeling rather guilty as she wore a sympathetic face. Oh, sorry, Kyoka. But, when it comes to impressing the audience, I have no other choice. PSH, I'm not sorry. Denki shrugged. When it comes to stuff like this, gotta put friendship second, ya know what I'm say, ENG. And just like that, Denki got jabbed with a jack right in his funny bone, leaving him a flailing mess as Kyoka glared at him. Thanks for nothing, Kaminari. The perplet barked before huffing and turning back around. Come on, let's go, Izuku. She glanced back, only to see him in a stare down with Todoroki. Izuku's green eyes filled with determination while Shoto's icy blue glared back coldly. Kyoka promptly spun to her partner and grabbed his arm, pulling him away. Okay, why don't you two save it for the battlefield, Izuku sighed and resigned to Kyoka's suggestion, walking back with her to their own space. But, as they were leaving, Kyoka couldn't help but pick up on a few tidbits thanks to her jacks. Now that that's done, let's talk strategy. Shoto was straight to the point, addressing his new teammates directly and without any lack of confidence. I chose the three of you because I believe we'll make for the most stable formation. His eyes shifted to Denki, who was still trying to shake off the tingly feeling in his arm. Kaminari's our left wing. He can use his quirk to keep enemies at bay. Makes sense, Denki winced. Todoroki's sights then went to Momo. Yaoyorozu, you'll take the right wing. Focus on insulation and defense. Momo gave a single nod. Of course. And Iida, the class representative, gave Shoto his full attention. You'll take the front. We'll rely on you for mobility and physical defense. Right, Tenya confirmed. And you'll be attacking and creating diversions of ice and fire, correct? Shoto furrowed his brow, his head turning up toward the crowd. Not quite. Eventually, he saw a certain man standing near the back of the bottom seat section, clearly visibly as fire dancing all across his body. It was the flame hero, Endeavor, his father. The very sight of him made Shoto clench a fist. When I'm in battle, I never use my left side. That last part gave Kyoka pause. Weird, why wouldn't he use his fire in battle? She thought to herself. That's arguably way more effective than his ice, honestly. Wait, what's that? Her ears perked up once again as she caught the sound of someone else speaking, coming from over near where Class 1B was. Soon enough, though, Kyoka would come to regret wanting to hear this. Almost everyone in the audience is foaming at the mouth for Class 1A. Now tell me, why is that? Came a rather smug, smarmy voice. Whoever it was, they were male, though since Kyoka didn't know 1B all that well, she had no clue who this voice belonged to. They're so full of themselves, just like Tetsu said earlier. They're the stars. The only difference between us and them is that they fought a couple of villains. Just because we're Class 1B doesn't mean we're second rate or can't win this whole thing. Kyoka could practically hear the arrogant smirk as he concluded his speech with, now, let's step it up and show these jerks what we can do. Whoever this was, Kyoka wanted to punch them in the mouth. Hard. Whoever the hell that conceited little twerp is, I'm gonna make sure he doesn't take 1A that lightly after this game. Kyoka's grip increased as she grit her teeth, only to stop when she heard a shout of pain. Gah, ouch, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, Izuku. Kyoka apologized, bowing her head profusely. I overheard something that kind of got me angry. Izuku gave her a reassuring smile. Hey, it's okay, Kyoka. Trust me, I get it. His eyes trailed across the crowd of students, seeing that all of them were pretty much on a team already. He could feel his stomach getting tied up in knots just thinking about their situation. I know that this is a really frustrating situation. Not being able to team up with Iida was a heavy blow, and we still need one more, but there doesn't seem to be anyone left. But, right as he said that, Izuku felt a hand clamp down on his shoulder. Hello. Izuku yelped and snapped his head up, only to feel his heart leap with joy as it was none other than Keita. The Soro parts user wore her signature smirk and jerked a thumb to her chest confidently. Not to brag here, Midoriya, but I'm actually still available. I'd be more than happy to team up with you guys, if you'd have me. Much to the three girls' surprise, Izuku immediately burst into tears, ones that would put a leaking fire hydrant. Kiryu, you'd really do that for us? Why yeah, sure. Keita recoiled as Izuku's tears began soaking the ground beneath him. But could you please stop crying? You're drenching your shoes. Sorry. Izuku wiped the tears from his eyes, only now realizing that there was a puddle forming around his feet. But you'd really team up with us? Even though we're pretty much everyone's enemy right now. Dude, Midoriya, as far as I'm concerned, I still owe you big time. Keita sent a wink down at him. After all, if it weren't for you and Brian, I might not be here at all. Izuku gasped, remembering that day vividly. On their way to the entrance exams, B had pulled to the side of the road to pick up a desperate Keita Kiryu, who had missed her train and would have missed the UA exams if it weren't for them. And I want to be a hero just as much as you do. Keita clenched her fist, smirking with determination. You're gonna need a strong and fast front horse if you're gonna make sure that headband stays where it is. I might not be able to use all my Soro parts while carrying you, but trust me, Keita extended a leg, transforming it into that of a raptor's. You're gonna want these legs on your team. Izuku's eyes widened to the size of saucers. In this form, Keita's legs were incredibly muscular, but also lean and agile. There was no doubt, she would be the perfect one to be their horse. Izuku craned his head up, beaming at her with confidence. Alright, you're in. Haha. Sweet. Keita slammed her fist into her palm. So listen to me and listen good, we're currently at the top and everyone's after us. But we're gonna stay at the top, isn't that right? Kyoka was quick to agree with her. Hell yeah, you're speaking my language, Keita. We won't let the others bring us down. Hee, let's do this. Mei reached into her case of babies once again, pulling out another set of hover sole boots. Kyoka, here, you're gonna want these if you wanna keep up with Dino Girl. The earphone jack user did a double take of that. But what about Izuku's plan of ME being the horse? That is a good plan, but think about it, not only would you be working offensive and defensive with your quirk, but you'd also be the target that everyone would go for. Mei reasoned, giving Izuku a nod. It's probably better if Muscle stays up top. Besides, she grinned manically as she pulled out the jetpack. I've got something special in mind for him. Hee. Izuku was visibly excited at the prospect of putting on the jetpack, and Kyoka had to admit, she saw what Mei was going for here. But at the same time, Izuku, before you put on that jetpack, I've got an idea. She drew closer to the boy and began whispering to him, which Mei and Keita listened in on. Her three teammates seemed intrigued as she explained, which gave her hope for her plan. So, what do you think? I think it's one of the most brilliant things I've heard all day. Izuku approved, which made Kyoka all the happier. As Mei strapped the jetpack onto him, Izuku gave one more resolute nod to his three female teammates. Alright, let's do this. Soon after, the timer hit 0, ending the time limit for team formations. Midnight, who was currently stretching her arms, seemed quite excited at that. Oh, goody. It's time to get this party started. From there, Present Mike took over. After 15 minutes to pick teammates and talk strategy, we've got 12 cavalry teams preparing to go head to head. Come on, everyone. Get your hands in the air. It's time for an arena-thumping UA battle royale. Let me hear ya scream. The entire stadium erupted at Mike's words, all while the teams formed up on one another, getting ready to go. Let's get this cavalry battle going. One final countdown before the game starts. 3, 2, 1. Begin. Midnight exclaimed. As the starting buzzer sounded off, several teams went for the expected move, making a beeline for Izuku and Kyoka's team. Izuku, who was now being propped up by the three girls, wasn't all that surprised. But thankfully, they had a plan. Not even giving us a chance, as expected. Guess that's what we get for being in first. Raptor legs. Keita shifted her legs into their more powerful form and called up, make your choice, Midori. That's easy. Run away. Before the three girls could even move, though, Tetsutsu and his team from 1B came barreling toward them. Don't think so. Much to the group's surprise, the ground beneath them suddenly began to soften up, to the point where they all started sinking. Ah, oh come on. Kyoka barked. Seriously. She focused over to Tetsu's group, immediately noticing the front horse. He had pale skin, white hair, and had no lips, instead just large, skull-like teeth. He also seemed to be focusing intently on them, which tipped Kyoka off instantly. This must be because of that guy's quirk. Grr, crap, I can't get out. Keita whipped her head up to Izuku. Midoriya, now would be a good time for. Right. Izuku pulled up a small switch in his hand. Kyoka, Hatsume, watch your faces. The purplet and pink-haired inventor both ducked as Izuku hit the button, activating the jetpack on his back. Within moments, twin jet blasts came bursting out of the pack and sent all three of them up high into the air, which was aided with the activation of the hover souls as well. Mei couldn't help but squeal in delight as her inventions worked perfectly. Ahaha, yes, everything is going according to my designs. Kyoka glanced down, making sure that no one was pursuing them. Unfortunately, though, there was. You think you can get away that easily? Toru, the invisible girl, was sitting atop the shoulders of Sato and Koji Kota, with Tokiyami having taken the front. The two boys in the back were blushing as Toru had removed her top, with nothing on but the headband on her forehead worth 300 points. Tokiyami. Right. Go, Dark Shadow. Within a split second, Tokiyami's dark shadow came bursting out of his chest, giving a raspy cry as it chased Izuku's team up into the air. However, they had a plan for that, too. Kyoka. Now. On it. Kyoka took up her subwoofers and sent a powerful sonic blast down to Dark Shadow, halting it in midair as their team began losing altitude. As this happened, she also extended another free jack down, wrapping it around Toru's headband before tearing it off. Hey. Kyoka pulled the headband up, putting it around Izuku's neck. Sorry, Toru, but we need that. Toru shouted after them, no you don't. You have 10 million points. Exactly. Kyoka retorted as Dark Shadow came back around. Keita, your turn. Apatosaurus tail. The new appendage grew right out of Keita's rear and went whipping downward, smacking Dark Shadow away as its guard was down. Izuku smiled excitedly as he watched Keita's quirk in action. That's so awesome. Your dinosaur parts can cover lots of blind spots. Keita, you're amazing. Keita simply rolled her eyes at the compliment, though her smile belied her. I'm nothing too special. And save the compliments for after we win. We're coming in for a landing. Kyoka warned as she sent down a less powerful sonic pulse toward the ground, which cushioned their fall as the hover souls deactivated. Woo. Now that's what I'm talking about. Great work controlling our landing, Kyoka. Izuku complimented, earning him a thumbs up from the punk rocker. Mei's grin widened as she asked, so, what do you think of my babies? Aren't they just precious? Cuteness can be manufactured, you know. The one for all inheritor nodded down to her. Excellent mobility. Your babies are really coming in clutch here, Hatsume. His eyes shifted between all three of his teammates before pointing forward. Now, let's keep this up. We get away from everyone as fast as we can and don't stop running. Wow. Barely 2 minutes have passed since we started and it's already a total free-for-all. Present Mike announced, his own exhilaration growing as the time passed. Yeah, watch those headbands. You can even ignore the 10 million points and go after the other chart toppers. Back on the dark side, the Decepticons watched in amusement as the game went into its starting minutes, finding the concept of the cavalry battle rather intriguing. I have to admit, their battle formations are rather interesting. Barricade commented with a head tilt. I realize that this is similar to a team-building exercise, though I must say that I'm still surprised by how maneuverable these organics still are with these formations. If ya ask me, they're a bunch of nutcases. Frenzy cackled, the mini-con sitting on his partner's shoulder. These humans come up with the weirdest scrap imaginable. And it's hilarious. Yeah sure, very funny. Swift rolled her optics, her sarcasm dripping in her voice. The green kids picked some pretty good allies. Nitra added, pointing to the three one by one. Earjack girl's good at offensive and defensive plays with those sonic blasts. The inventor over there's got those gadgets that are only increasing their maneuverability. The hacker focused directly on the gray-skinned girl in front. And that one, she's obviously got some sort of power that makes her highly adaptable, not just in maneuverability, but in offensive capabilities, too. Shadow Striker gave a short scoff, her arms still crossed. It would seem that Z-Boy has an inkling of how their powers work in conjunction with one another. Flatline nodded, keeping his optics on the action. Indeed, it is very fascinating in that regard. However, they are not the only ones who have prepared effective combinations, I am certain of that. What in the pit is that? Blastwave exclaimed, pointing to the screen as a rather tall and muscular human with several arms came barreling toward Izuku's team, the appendages and their muscle all covering his back. That cannot possibly be an itsy-bitsy human boy, can it? More than likely. Starscream mumbled. I have come to learn that humans can just look like whatever the heck they want on this planet without rhyme or reason. He shuddered as he saw what appeared to be mouths on the ends of the multiple limbs. They are truly disgusting creatures. At that point, Izuku had noticed Shoji charging at them as well, doing a double take at the masked boy's approach. Whoa, Shoji's incoming. However, it then hit him that there was seemingly no one else with the dupli arm user. But where's his team? Keita snapped her head in the opposite direction, seeing Tetsu's team coming back around. Never mind that right now. We need some breathing room, otherwise we'll get trapped between multiple opponents. Whoa. The Soro parts user had to duck her head as a long, slimy tongue came whipping at them from out of nowhere, though the source became clear as Shoji kept coming. After missing Izuku's head as well, the tongue retracted into the darkness beneath Shoji's extended dupli arms, leading Keita to realize, Su. You're in there. Suyu Asui peeked her head out, bowing to Keita. Sorry, Keita. Gotta get first place. Oui, mon chéri. Just then, a bright light flashed from inside Shoji's armed tent and blasted out at Izuku's group, which they collectively jumped away from. Then, much to their surprise, Aoyama popped up from between Shoji's arms, or his upper half, at least. The first place headband will be ours. Apologies for the inconvenience, Mon Ami. With her eyes narrowed, Kyoka balked at the odd formation. Oh, come on, is that even allowed? As if on cue, Midnight gave a thumbs up. The judges say yes, it is. Ah, fantastic. Kyoka rolled her eyes and snapped her head up to Izuku. Green bean, we gotta get outta here. Right, hold on tight. With another click of the button, the quartet were one again airborne, quickly getting out of range from both incoming teams. Kyoka, give us a boost. On it. With their hover souls already at full power, Kyoka moved her jacks and aimed her subwoofers downward, ready to let loose a potent sonic blast. Hang on to your butts. The resulting burst from her speakers propelled the team even higher up, getting them out of range of not just Suyu's tongue, but Aoyama's blasts as well. However, there was someone still keen on getting to them. Boom, boom, boom. The four whipped their heads down in panic, knowing who those explosions likely belonged to. Sure enough, Bakugo was hurtling toward them through the air, his ever-present glare boring into them as he reached up at them. Don't think for a second that you're safe. I've got you. Kiryu. Gotcha. Following Izuku's call, Keita shouted, Diplodocus neck. And within moments, her head changed to that of the sauropod in question, along with her neck extending to the same size as one as well. Katsuki's eyes widened as the neck came craning down and slammed into him with an impactful whop. As a result, his next blast was sent off course and Bakugo himself was sent careening back down to earth. MHA. Take that, Baku breath. However, Hantashiro was quick to launch his tape at Bakugo, reeling him back in toward their team. Eijiro and Mina helped catch him, though Present Mike was rather taken aback by the whole thing. Whoa, Bakugo just separated from his horses. Is that even allowed? Once again, Midnight voiced her approval. He never touched the ground, so technically, it's okay. As Izuku's team came in for a landing, the green-haired boy let out a sigh of relief. Phew, that was too close for comfort. Nice work, everyone. But then, he got to thinking, as much as I don't want to admit it, we should probably stay out of the air for a while. We do it too often and we're bound to become predictable to the other teams. Izuku glanced down to his teammates, specifically the ones in front and to his left. That means, to survive, we'll have to rely on Kata's Soro parts and Kyoka's sound blasts. Now, who wants to take a look at each team's points so far? Up on the giant screen, the 12 teams appeared in a listing that sorted them from the most points to the least, and with it came a rather shocking revelation. The crowd became silent in complete astonishment, as even present Mike had to make sure he was seeing things right. Wait a second, this is an unexpected turn. Other than Team Mito Jiro, Class 1A's not doing so hot. For as shocking as that was, Kyoka couldn't help but get hung up on something else. Wait, what? She whipped her head up and saw their team name on screen, and indeed, it was labeled, Mito Jiro. Her eyes trailed over to Izuku questioningly. Did you sign off on that name? No, not exactly. Izuku blushed, wincing at the awkward name. However, he was still curious about the two teams that were behind them, Team Tetsu, who were doing fairly well, and then Team Monoma, which was a name that Izuku didn't recognize. Just then, Team Bakugo's points went straight down to 0, with Monoma's team gaining them instead. Seems even Team Bakugo's losing. Not too far away, Present Mike's statement proved accurate as Katsuki felt his headband get ripped off, and in his ear, he could hear a smug little voice say, "Your class is too small-minded. Think bigger." "He got us," Mina shouted. "The hell did you say?" Bakugo snapped. Whoever had stolen his headband was gonna get the tar beat out of them. "Get back here." The group that stole his headband was made up of 1B students, but the one scrub he was focused on was the one up top. He had short, blonde hair that was combed neatly, his blue eyes staring at him in a condescending way. Katsuki immediately wanted to beat this guy up for being so damned arrogant and flaunting it in their faces. He must have been this Monoma guy. Midnight said the obstacle course was just the first game, and we figured they wouldn't cut that many of us right off the bat, would they? Monoma's smirk increased as he continued. Assuming that they'd keep at least 40 contestants for the next event, all we had to do was make sure we stayed within that group as we ran. From our spots in the middle rankings, we could fully observe the quirks our rivals had and judge their capabilities. He rolled his eyes as Bakugo continued to seethe. Only fools would obsess over winning the preliminary rounds, wouldn't you agree? Katsuki could feel his eyebrow ticking as this asshole went on. You planned this as a class. As Monoma placed his latest prize around his neck, he gave a shrug. It wasn't totally unanimous, but I'd say it's turning out well. It's better than chasing after a temporary front runner like a horse with a carrot sticking out of its mouth. Thankfully, Monoma's little speech could be heard on the broadcast thanks to some special drone cameras that were zooming over the field. And it was from this vantage point that Starscream came to one conclusion: I want him as a Decepticon. The Air Commander nearly jumped out of his seat, grinning like a mad bot as he admired the trickster's self-righteous attitude and patronizing tone. This young man has everything it takes to be a Decepticon. He even has the gall to demean and humiliate his peers. He's perfect. Skywarp and Thundercracker eyed one another warily. Sounds to me like he'd just be a mini version of Starscream. The Blue Seeker deduced. And Primus knows we don't need two of them. Skywarp concurred. Kyoka had overheard the whole thing as well, and at that point, Katsuki was screaming bloody murder, telling his team to shift their focus to Monoma's. It was kind of a relief on one hand, having Bakugo off their backs, but on the other hand, she recognized Monoma as the annoying voice she had heard earlier, so she was kind of hoping that Bakugo would beat his ass. Damn, how the hell am I rooting for and against Bakugo in this situation? After relaying what she had heard to her teammates, Izuku took a moment for all of that to settle in. Wow, Class 1B really had a strategy that involved throwing the qualifier. After thinking it over, he could definitely see how that would be an advantage, though. I guess that could help them leave a bigger impression with the audience, though. Everyone does kind of love an underdog. But if they are planning the long game here, they might not even bother coming after our headbands after all. Kata pointed out. And with Baku Breath going after them, that means they'll be off our backs, too. So you're saying we're in the clear? Kyoka gasped as Kata came to an abrupt halt, the answer to her question staring directly back at them. Standing opposite of their team about 15 feet away was Todoroki, Tenya, Momo and Denki, the former serving as the rider while the latter two were near the back, with Tenya being the front horse. It was just as she had heard them plan out. Momo had even created roller skates for herself and Denki so they could keep up with Tenya. Crap. Keita furrowed her brow, her black hair falling over her eyes as glared at the other team. Yeah, not by a long shot. And now we've reached the halfway point of the game. A few of the teens briefly glanced toward the clock, seeing that they only had close to 7.5 minutes left to survive the game. As the cavalry battle enters its second half, it's anyone's game. Class 1B has made an unexpected showing, but who will wear the 10 million points in the end? That's the real question, sports fans. Shoto's cold stare bored straight into Izuku's, making the greenette wince in discomfort. I'll be taking that headband now, the half-and-half teen stated, only to notice the second headband around Izuku's neck. Getting greedy, huh? Are you really that desperate? Kyoka sneered up at the boy. Wouldn't you like to know, Mr. Cold Shoulder? Didn't think it'd take this long to bump into you, honestly. Keita mused. Thought you'd come after us sooner. She craned her head back toward Izuku. Seems like he still has it out for ya, Midoriya. As uneasy as he was feeling at the moment, though, Izuku knew he had to steel his nerves for what was to come. The game's only halfway over. We can't stop now. Shoto waved his hand toward the leading team. Now, Iida, forward. Right. Tenya took a ready position as his engines powered up, and in one burst, he went blasting forward, pulling his teammates along with him. Yaoyorozu, be ready to protect us. Momo responded to Shoto's order immediately, creating an insulated sheet as well as a thick, jagged spike that smashed into the ground as they went. On it. Kaminari. Oh, I know what I've gotta do. Denki smirked as he began charging up, small bolts of electricity already dancing across his body. Kyoka recoiled at the sight, knowing that they were in for a shock. Izuku, we need to get the hell out of here. Exactly, but there's one problem. It's not just Todoroki that's after us. At his words, Kyoka looked again and gasped, seeing well over half of the active teams coming straight toward them. We've got everyone incoming. Mei whipped her head between everyone in panic. Please tell me that someone has an idea, because I do not want my babies getting hurt. I might have one. Keita offered, her legs beginning to undergo another change. Keep your eyes and mouths shut, guys. Hope you've made something strong, Yaoyorozu. Denki announced, his electricity growing ever more powerful. Right as he said that, Todoroki grabbed the insulated sheet and covered himself, Tenya and Momo with it, which was all Denki needed to let his attack loose. Indiscriminate shock, 1.3 million volts. In a split second, the entire area was covered in lightning bolts, hitting everyone within a 20-foot radius. All of the other teams were left paralyzed in place. Except for Izuku's. Right as Denki unleashed his attack, Keita had finished her transformation. Brachiosaurus legs. Shoto's eyes snapped open to see Keita now at least 10 feet in the air, supported by the thick pillars that were her legs. Izuku, Mei and Kyoka all held on for dear life as Keita raised one leg and then brought it down, boom. In one step, a huge cloud of dust and sand was kicked up in front of them, effectively blocking the lightning entirely. Keita slowly changed her legs back to normal and the group went running, leaving the half-cold half-hot quirk user baffled. Alright, let's get going. What an amazing upset. Keita Kiryu's Soro parts just keep coming in clutch for Team Mito Jiro. Present Mike snapped his fingers as he posed in the booth. Talk about Dino-Mite. Wow, you sure like using sauropod parts, don't ya? Mei commented. Yeah, they're kind of my favorite, right up there with Triceratops. Izuku smiled in approval. Well, either way, you really helped us get out of that situation, Kiryu. Nice quick thinking. Keita returned the gesture with a nod. Well, I offered myself to you guys, so might as well pull my weight. Now come on, we've got a game to win. However, Shoto's group weren't done yet. Less than 6 minutes left. Todoroki reached out and grabbed the large spike that Momo created, freezing it over entirely and spreading the ice down over the ground. Within seconds, a thick layer of ice covered the field behind them, freezing the other teams in place. Understandably, the other students weren't too pleased. Sorry, but it's the only way. Would you look at that? He stopped all of those teams cold. Yes, but only after Kaminari had immobilized them. Eraserhead pointed out to his loud colleague. In the obstacle course, Todoroki was surprised by how many people avoided his beginning attack. So now, he's adapting his strategy. But before the 4-1A students left to follow Izuku's team, Aizawa saw them circle back around in a flash and nabbed a few of the other team's headbands. And I see he's taking full advantage of that. Might as well take these. Shoto said as his team went in pursuit of Izuku's. Just in case. Needless to say, the other teams weren't too thrilled. In particular, he heard a certain red-headed, ponytailed girl from 1B shouted, "Come back." In frustration. Still, Todoroki couldn't afford to lose focus. He had to at least make it to the next round, and if he couldn't do it with the 10 million, it was better to have insurance than nothing at all. Gotta say, that kid's a pretty good strategist. Barricade noted. Starscream leaned forward in his chair contemplatively. Indeed. It would seem that he is much more experienced than the other students down there. Interesting. Just then, he heard the door hiss and open up behind all of them, to which he swiveled around to face the only Decepticon who had yet to show up. Well, look who decided to emerge from their cave. Better late than never, I suppose. Can it, Starscream? Unicronus growled as his thunderous footsteps echoed through the bridge, his sights firmly set on the screen. How are things going down there? The Seeker rolled his optics and swung himself back around. You would know if you had been here from the start, General. The little green ones at the Autobots keep around as in Z lead. Shadow Striker informed, in spite of Starscream's discontent. It has been an eventful second round, though Z-Boy and his team have adopted Z's strategy of running away to keep their 10 million points. Unicronus balked at the plan. Bah, of course, cowards. He crossed his arms, observing as Izuku's team was chased down by Todoroki's. If that were me down there, I'd turn right the frag around and get in the other team's faces. Those humans have no idea what it's like on the battlefield. Swift glanced away and murmured, I'd hardly call a playground game a battlefield, but you do you. Hold on. Nitro piped up, pointing at the screen. Midoriya's team's about to hit the boundary line. To be more accurate, Izuku's team were currently flying backward thanks to the aid of Mei's hover souls, so they couldn't see where they were heading. They had intended on flying again, but the jetpack wasn't working. Baby, Mei shouted worriedly. It must have got logged up with sand from Dino Girl's stomp. Sorry. Keita apologized, seeing Tenya and the others drawing closer to them. But we've got a different problem to deal with. Any ideas? Kyoko was quick bring up her jacks, along with her mini subwoofers. Well, there's always one option. She aimed her gear toward the ground and announced, special move. Heartbeat distortion. BWOOOM. Several sonic pulses went rippling through the earth, shaking it violently, which forced Tenya and the others to come to a complete stop to make sure they stay balanced. That made him stop. Great. Izuku smiled. Now let's keep going. About that, Keita peered over her shoulder, her eyes widening in fright. We kinda gotta stoop. She dug the claws of her rat-poor legs into the ground, slowing their momentum as Kyoko and Mei put a stop to the hover souls. As it turned out, the four of them very nearly went over the boundary line without even realizing it. And they had stopped just 10 feet short of doing so. Man, that was way too close. Izuku let out a nervous breath. Why yeah, no kidding. Now let's get. All of a sudden, two massive walls of jagged ice came around from either side of them, leaving the team with nowhere to go. Team Mitojiro has nowhere left to run. Present Mike leaned forward in anticipation, eager to see how this would end. Only 1 minute left. Todoroki has cornered the 10 million point team and is poised to seize first place. But, unbelievably, Team Mitojiro has been able to avoid the Ice Master for the last half of the game. Will they be able to keep it up even with the cards stacked against them? Team Todoroki was once again approaching at quick speeds, which left Izuku to start formulating a new idea. Come on, we gotta do some. Wait. That's it. He craned his head down to the girls and relayed his plan. Guys, we gotta stay on Todoroki's left side. That'd be alright, correct? Keita asked. Exactly. Izuku confirmed. Trust me, this'll work. As Team Todoroki closed in, Team Mido-Jiro gave a short leap to their right, taking Shoto off guard. Stop. Tenya and the others did so, giving him time to think. Damn it. He figured it out. He knows I haven't been using my left side at all in this competition. His strategy is to stay on my left. He glanced down to his lead horse teammate. If I try to freeze him from this position, I'll hit Iida. And if he keeps moving like this, there's no way I can get a clear shot at his team. Plus, Kiryu can defend against Kaminari's electricity. There's not much time left. He narrowed his eyes at Izuku. The bastard. But then, Tenya spoke up. Everyone, we have less than 60 seconds left. The gravity behind his voice took his teammates aback, including Todoroki. I'm going to do something that'll make me worthless to you, but it'll be worth it. However, Kyoka could hear what Tenya was saying clear as day, and it was enough to make her gut do a flip. Oh no, she whispered up to her best friend, Izuku, Iida's about to do something. Should we initiate the backup plan? Izuku bit his lip, knowing he'd feel bad about doing this. But at that moment, it was do or die. Whatever Tenya had up his sleeve, he had a feeling it was going to be something major. He nodded down to Kyoka. Right, do it. Iida, what are you saying? Shoto questioned as Tenya took a knee, getting in a ready position. Just make sure you get that headband. With the sounds of his engine starting, Tenya fired them up hard, to the point where the afterburn color went from orange to bright blue. Brace yourselves. Hold on tight. Torque over, boom. In a blink and you'll miss it moment, Team Todoroki went flying, zooming over to Izuku's team at the speed of a Formula 1 racer. Recipro burst. Todoroki almost lost his train of thought at the sheer speed they were going, the wind whipping past his eyes making it hard to see. But kept his focus, reaching out and feeling the headband reach his hands, as well as the sensation of someone's skin beneath his fingers. That must have been it. He gave a good yank to loosen it and took it right with them, the quartet rushing past Izuku's team and pulling to a complete stop within half a second. The stadium went into an uproar at what had just occurred, including Present Mike. What just happened? That was one big blur. Holy smokes, folks, Tenya Iida's just showed off something huge. Why didn't he show that move off in the preliminaries? Iida, what was that? Momo exclaimed, all while Denki had been thrown for a loop. Forced my torque and RPM into overdrive, which gave me explosive power. Tenya explained, trying to catch his breath. His legs, however, were literally smoking hot after the move. Unfortunately, the recoil stalls my engines for a while. It's a secret move I've been saving. No one in the class knows about it. He craned his head over to Izuku's group, the green-haired boy keeping his head down as Tenya gave him a knowing smile. Midoriya, I told you that I'd do my best to beat you, didn't I? Surprisingly enough, though, he received a small chuckle. Yeah, you did. I gotta say, Iida, I'm stunned and impressed. That move was really great, and I wanna talk to you more about it, for sure. His happy tone took Team Todoroki by surprise, almost as if he didn't just lose something important. But winning this game is about much more than big moves, it's also about planning ahead with several strategies. That being said, Izuku lifted his head up, revealing he still had the 10 million headband around his head. You might wanna take a second look at that headband. To say that Todoroki's team were left shell-shocked was an understatement. Well, most of them. Denki still out of his gourd from his electrical blast and had no clue what was going on. Momo, however, was slack-jawed and speechless, though Tenya's jaw had practically hit the ground, the young man trembling as small noises escaped his throat. Shoto himself slowly glanced down to the headband in his hands. It was only worth 300 points. How? Shoto clenched his hand around the fabric, his frustration growing. He had to remind himself to keep control, otherwise the headband would catch fire. How did you? We took Toru's headband for a reason, you know. Kyoka piped up, pointing up to Izuku's headband. Because we knew that everyone would be coming after that. So we figured, hey, let's do something that no one would expect and get a fake-out headband from someone else. But Midoriya had it around his neck. Momo pointed out. Todoroki's hand clearly went for his head. Kyoka smirked as she extended her jacks. Yeah, well, I might have had something to do with that. Lifted it up just enough to where Todoroki could accidentally grab it. Tenya was galled to hear that. You lifted the headband. That is not against the rules, Midnight announced, having overheard the whole thing. She pointed up to the screen which displayed a slowed-down replay of the events, where indeed showed that Kyoka had lifted the headband up, but it never left Izuku's neck until Todoroki ripped it off. The headband never left Midoriya's neck while Jiro was lifting it, and it wasn't removed until the other team acquired it, so I'll allow it. Inconceivable. President Mike hollered as the crowd once again erupted into collective cheers. Team Mito Jiro has played Team Todoroki like fiddles and fooled them effectively. What a deceiving move. Momo had to admit, that was very clever, though she couldn't lie and say she wasn't a little upset. You guys tricked us. Not tricked, necessarily, Keita said, glancing up toward the commentary booth where Aizawa was watching on. Think of it more as a natural deception. After all, if you wanna beat villains, sometimes, you gotta think like villains. She couldn't see it, but Eraserhead was smirking slightly beneath his bandages. Keita, Kyoka and Maid performed a U-turn to get away from the other team as soon as possible. Now, if you'll excuse us, we'll be going now and… Boom. Before they could even take 5 steps, however, one of the ice walls exploded in a brilliant display, the fiery blast making the ice crystals shimmer. However, the person making the explosion was far less brilliant. Deku. Bakugo and his team had finally returned, having regained their points, and then some. The ashen blonde, with his neck covered in at least 5 other headbands, jumped off of Mina, Eijiro and Shiro to get to his real prize. Give me the 10 million. Izuku's eyes widened in abject horror. Seeing Katsuki lunging toward him was nothing new, but there was still 20 seconds left. 20 seconds that could easily be used to swipe his headband. Bakugo was just about to close the distance between them with his outstretched hand, but… Triceratops head. Smack. Gra. Katsuki shouted in pain as his hand crashed into Keita's now massive forehead, which had expanded into a shield-like frill. Also, he now found himself in between a pair of horns, one of which knocked into him as Keita wrenched her head to throw Bakugo away. Shiro had managed to catch him with his tape, but that didn't help Bakugo's temper. Ah, damn it, lizard lips. Once more, he blasted toward the group, breaking Shiro's tape to do so. I've had enough of you. Try me, Baku breath. The 3-horned girl retorted, pawing the ground with her raptor leg to prepare a big charge. I can do this all day. BBBs. Things came to a sudden halt as the timer went off, causing Katsuki to stop in midair and flop face first into the dirt. That's it. Time's up, Midnight announced. And with that, the second round is finally over. She pointed her flag over to Team Mito Jiro with a grin. Please, give a big hand to the reigning first-place contenders, Team Mito Jiro. All at once, the audience popped, cheers for Izuku and Kyoka's team echoing throughout the entire place. But, from their perspective, the Decepticons were less than pleased. Come on, really? Swift bemoaned, throwing her head back in disappointment. Primus, I was hoping that explosion guy was gonna totally rip him a new one after they pulled that little trick. I know, right? Nitra agreed. Would have made for great dramatic irony. Going through all that trouble to get that fake-out headband only to really lose to the bomb-crazy maniac. She gave a small sigh. Sadly, it was not to be. Well, I suppose can at least appreciate the trick they pulled. Starscream smirked. Perhaps there is more deception within these children than even I realized. Bah, round was boring. Blastwave balked. Not nearly enough destruction. Flatline sighed and facepalmed. Of course you vold say that. Skywarp merely gave a shrug. Not that big a deal, honestly. They gotta have something big planned for the finals. He gave a smirk as he punched into his palm. Then we're bound to see some real chaos there. Hope so. Unicronus concurred, folding his arms with an unimpressed glare. Otherwise, doing this for Lord Megatron will be a complete waste of time. Though their lack of being in first place was regrettable, Eijiro and the rest of his team were more concerned for their leader at the moment. Yo, Bakugo. You okay, man? The question sent Bakugo into a fist-pounding tantrum that would leave the most spoiled child looking well-behaved by comparison. His angry shouts were thankfully muffled by the dirt, though. I'll take that as a no. Mina gave a sigh as she saw Izuku and Kyoka's team already celebrating. Ah well, guess that's that. Yeah, but hey, we still got a lot of points. Shiro said optimistically. Maybe we'll still make it to the next round. Hope so. Eijiro sighed. But at least we showed that Monoma guy a thing or two, right Bakugo? Ah, right, sorry I asked. The main screen went blank as Present Mike began listing off the teams moving on. Now, let's see who our top 4 teams are. Of course, in first place are our reigning champs, Team Mito Jiro. Of course, the 4 teammates were thrilled at the news, even if Kyoka still cringed at that team name. Still not too sure how I feel about that name, but at this point, I don't care. She pumped her fists into the air victoriously. We're moving on, baby. Woo. Ha, yeah, it's really exciting. Izuku looked to Mei and Keita, the former already tinkering with her damaged jetpack after removing it from his back. And you too, thank you both so much. If it weren't for you guys, we'd be sunk. Keita rolled her eyes and nudged Izuku's shoulder. Ah, come on. Don't sell yourself short there, Midoriya. It was your leadership, she then pointed to Kyoka, and your plan that really came in clutch. Kyoka, however, was quick to argue that. Well, maybe, but if it weren't for that last-minute defense you got on Bakugo, who knows what might have happened. She and Izuku bowed to her. Thanks for that, Keita, big time. Her eyes trailed over to Mei as well, tapping her on the shoulder with her jack to get her attention. And thank you, Mei. Your babies really came in clutch. Oh, ha, of course they did. Mei smiled proudly as she dumped the sand out of her jetpack. What else would you have expected from Hatsume Genius? In second place, we've got Team Todoroki. Present Mike's announcement only made the quartet feel worse about the whole ordeal. They had been deceived, and quite effectively so. Shoto furrowed his brow, keeping his head low so no one would see his displeasure. Damn it. I'm so sorry. Iida apologized, clenching a fist in ire. I let everyone down, didn't I? And no, of course not. Momo insisted, all while keeping Denki from falling over on his face. That isn't true in the slightest, Iida. We were all fooled, not just you. She gave him a hopeful smile. And besides, we still made it to the next round, and that special move of yours was just incredible. Tenya's eyes widened and he coughed into his hand bashfully. Ahem, thank you, Yaoyorozu, that's much appreciated. At that moment, though, he saw Izuku and Kyoka making their way over to the two of them, both wearing sympathetic expressions. Tenya took a deep breath, put on a smile, and extended his hand. Good game, Midoriya, Jiro. I honestly would not have expected you to pull out a strategy such as that. You were right, in order to outwit a villain, you must be willing to think like them at times, and I can see how that can be applied here as well. Izuku reached out, taking Tenya's hand. Thank you, Iida. Honestly, I did feel a little bad about doing it, but... Say no more. I understand. Tenya gave him a knowing grin. As much as I wanted to defeat you, I know that you wanted to keep your position just as much. You two worked hard for it, after all. I'd argue they worked smarter, actually. Momo interjected. Not necessarily harder. She raised a brow to Kyoka. Wonder how you'll be able to keep that up in the next round. Kyoka sent her a wink. Oh, we'll try. In third place, Team Bakugo. The news that they were moving on did nothing to reassure Bakugo himself, who simply kept screaming his frustrations. Mina sighed, folding her arms over her chest. Man, and we were so close to grabbing first place. Sure, but we're moving on, so it's all good. Shiro rationalized. Eijiro's eyes shifted over to Katsuki, who was banging his head into the sand over and over. I don't think our leader would agree with you, at all. And finally, in fourth place, it's Team Tetsutet, huh? What's this? The three teams did a double take at Present Mike's surprised tone. Team Shinso. When did they come back from the dead? Well, regardless, they're moving on to the finals as well. At the news, almost everyone in association with a certain anti-gravity brunette all beamed in excitement. Wait, that means Uraraka's going on, too. Izuku exclaimed, only for the girl in question to come running into view past the massive ice wall, along with Ojiro alongside her as well. Hey, there she is now. Kyoka waved to her and called out, hey, Chaco. Congrats on, huh? But the second the rocker saw her friend's face, her happiness gave way to concern, seeing Ochako looking dazed, confused, and upset. Momo, Keita, Izuku and the others all saw this as well, and Ojiro was in a similar state. Ochako. Guys. Ochako cried as she came to a halt, clearly in a state of panic. There was this, and then I had no idea what I was. Momo stepped in and took hold of Ochako's arm as the brunette began hyperventilating. Whoa, slow down, Ochako. Deep breaths. What happened? Is there something wrong? There is. Ojiro piped up, the tailed blonde wearing a grim expression. Neither of us have any recollection of what's happened over the past 15 minutes. That made everyone's eyes widen as Ojiro's brows furrowed. The entire second round for us is one big blur. We don't even remember teaming up with each other. We just blanked out, and then woke up standing next to, the boy peered over his shoulder, him. Izuku and the others set their sights across the field, seeing Shinso handing in his headbands to the official. The purple-haired boy was wearing a rather cold, calculating smile, almost as if he had gotten away with something that only he knew about. Izuku's gaze narrowed in suspicion. Something's wrong here, really wrong. Chapter 26, Intermission. Optimus Prime was feeling incredibly proud at the moment. Not only did all 9 of his Autobots charges make it into the final round, but they all performed exemplary. The once data archivist had to admit, he wasn't that big of a sports fan, even back on Cybertron, but the fact that their allies were doing so well was definitely making him extremely excited. Of course, there had been several other humans in the competition who had piqued his interest as well, including young Keita Kiryu. With the right training, her quirk could probably be one of the most versatile any hero could have. Prime thought to himself, especially with her mastery of those transformations. Of course, there was also Shoto Todoroki and Katsuki Bakugo, the students who seemed to have it out for Izuku. He could see that Bakugo in particular was hot-headed and rash, to the point where he reminded Prime of a few Autobots he had dealt with in the past. Hot-blooded and angry, yet he wishes to be a hero. This boy has quite the complex background. His optics shifted to Shoto as he came on screen. And yet, I find that boy to be the harder one to get a tag on. Perhaps this requires further investigation. Man, can you believe it? Sunstreaker exclaimed, giving his brother a double high five. Our boys are headed into the second round. I know, right, it's so freaking cool. Sideswipe cheered, spinning toward Strongarm. And hey, you must be pretty hyped that Tenya and Ochako are moving on, too, huh? Strongarm grinned, though her optics were full of concern. I am, it's just, she honed in on the brunette on the screen, seeing her distress as she joined up with the others. I think something's not right. She seems scared of something, almost as if she's not focusing on her advancement at all. Windblade hummed at that. Well, she did pair up with some of the most unexpected of partners. The city speaker raised an eyelid, seeing that the blonde-tailed kid that she teamed with also seemed off-put about something. And that boy seems to be in a similar state as her, so I'm not sure what happened. If you want my guess, I think their leaders got something to do with it. Springer piped up, pointing to the screen. That purple-haired kid, he seems kinda sketchy. Not sure why, but I think his smile just puts me off, big time. Yeah, same. Jazz curled his lips in discomfort. Getting some weird vibes from that dude, no doubt. His gaze landed on Optimus, who had stayed silent since the last round ended. You thinkin' on something, Prime? What's the haps? Optimus didn't respond immediately, but when he did, it took the whole group by surprise. Autobots, I think I have come to a decision. The commander stood up, clenching a fist as he made his announcement. I would like to witness the final round in person. Wait, what? Strongarm exclaimed. Prime, are you serious? Red Alert asked. I am. Optimus affirmed. All 9 of our charges have made it to the finals. I believe it is only right that we show them our full support. He gave the group a nod. I understand if some of you are uncomfortable in leaving the base, but just know that I will be going too. But Sideswipe was quick to jump in. Prime, why didn't you say so in the first place? Sunstreaker agreed without question. Of course, we wanna go, too. Who says that RC, B and Bulk have to have all the fun witnessing the Sports Fest live? Count me in on that action. Jazz said with a thumbs up. Besides, I've been wanting to stretch my hollow form's legs for a while now. Strongarm gave a salute. Optimus, I request to accompany you as well. I'd like to show Tenya and Ochako my full support. Optimus smiled beneath his faceplate, giving them all a nod. Of course you can come. The more the merrier, and I'm certain that your friends will be happy to have your support there as well. He craned his head over to Red Alert, Springer and Windblade next. And you three, what will you be doing? HMPH, as much as I'd love to go, my alt mode isn't exactly inconspicuous at the school. Windblade said with a sad wince. I mean, I could try hiding in the woods, but I wouldn't want to risk some random human stumbling upon me by accident. Springer's hand went to the back of his neck. Yeah, same here. I'm not sure an experimental military vehicle would be all that ordinary in a high school setting. He raised his hand with a big grin. But give the kids my best, and wish 'em all the luck in the world. With his head lowered, Red Alert gestured toward the ground bridge. And while I would like to see May and I's handiwork in person as well, I'm afraid I'm the only one who can work the ground bridge quick enough to bring you back here should anything happen. He went up and bowed his head toward Optimus. So Prime, if you would, give my best regards to May for me. I will, old friend. Optimus affirmed. You can be sure of that. Thank you. I'll get the ground bridge set up. The Autobot medic walked over and began working the controls, and before long, the warp gate was open for them. Alright, there you go. You should come out in one of UA's test grounds. I'll contact Nezu and tell him of your arrival. Thank you, Red Alert. With that, the Prime faced his Autobots, pointing straight toward the ground bridge. Autobots, transform and roll for the sports festival. WHRRTSCHZZTSCHZZTSCHZZCHK. All at once, the 5 Autobots converted into their alternate modes, driving through the vortex without a second thought. Upon emerging on the other side, they were greeted with the sight of lush foliage as far as they could see, with a large gate not too far away. We have arrived, but be on your guard, Autobots. Should the wrong person see this, it would mean trouble for all of us. Activate your holoforms and follow me. As they drove out of the training grounds, however, Sideswipe couldn't help but comment, hey, wow, they wanted to up the security around this place and we managed to get in without much effort, hope the cons don't get this idea. Back in the stadium, meanwhile, Principal Nezu was smiling to himself as he watched the students all make their way for the exits, no doubt grateful to be getting a break from the games. He was just about to stand up himself when, from his right, a man in a black three-piece suit and dark sunglasses came up to him, holding a phone. Principal Nezu, sir, you have a call. I've been told it's important. Ah, thank you, my good man. Nezu reached up to receive the phone, bringing it right to his face. Hello, Nezu speaking. Principal Nezu, this is Dr. Randall. Nezu's smile widened cheerily. Oh, yes, the medic. Good to hear from you. He was going by a code name, but there was no doubt, it was Red Alert. Without a change in demeanor, the principal showed his concern for the call. Is everything alright? Has something happened that we should be concerned about? Red Alert quickly denied the claim. No, not at all. In fact, I bring you rather good news. Orion and a few others are headed toward the festival at this very moment. I just wanted to inform you since they should already be on the premises by now. The Autobot had to keep in mind that he had to use the given codenames for his teammates, should someone be listening in. That's very good to hear, Doctor. Nezu approved. I will be certain to be the first one to greet them. As he said this, though, an idea entered the hyper-intelligent animal's head. Of course, I'm sure the children will want to spend some time with them, perhaps an extended lunch break is in order. He returned to Red Alert to say his farewell. Well, if that is all, then I thank you for this information. Goodbye for now. Farewell, Mr. Principal. And with that, the line went silent, just as All Might had passed Nezu on his way out. What was that? The pro-hero asked. Nezu craned his head up to the symbol of peace with excitement in his voice. Oh, All Might, you will be quite excited to hear this, Orion and others will be arriving shortly. This caught several other teachers' attention as they were walking out, though Toshinori was definitely the most excited by the news. I had a feeling that he couldn't stay away for long. He must have been watching young Midoriya's performance and wanted to experience the final event for himself. Sure that's a good idea for him to come here, though? Snipe asked, raising a hand. After all, what if something bad happens because of him being here? Oh, I can assure you, Mr. Snipe, we are well prepared for that possibility. Nezu assured. After all, Orion's people have their own sensors on high, so should any unwelcomed guests try to come, they'll be sure to vacate the premises quickly to throw them off our trail. Snipe hummed to himself, considering the principal's words. Well, here's hoppin', right, Principal Nezu, sir. As he walked off, however, the marksman hero couldn't help but think, that being said, I'm sure the cons, gonna have a grudge against us for what we did to him just a few days back. HMPH, hope Prime knows what he's doing. Toshinori put his hands together, his body beginning to steam as he buffed up into his hero form. Well, that's excellent to hear, but, before that, I actually want to pay someone a little visit. All Might walked over to the door, waving to Nezu before making his exit. Come tell me when Orion arrives, if you would please, Principal Nezu, sir. Of course, see you soon. Nezu waved before pulling his own phone out to make a quick call. And while that's going on, I must make a little addendum. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it for this morning's rounds. Present Mike shouted, whirling around in his chair before making an abrupt stop, slamming his hand on the table. Now, let's take an hour lunch break before we start the afternoon festivities, huh? The UA teacher glanced down as he felt his phone vibrating in his pocket, before cutting off his live feed to answer, yellow. Oh, Principal Nezu, they're coming. You want me to? Oh, I see. Gotcha, then. Next to him, Aizawa raised a brow beneath his bandages. What are you talking about? Slight change in plans, folks. Present Mike shouted, taking the erasure hero off guard. The lunch break has been extended by an hour in order for our people to double-check our security. Better safe than sorry, you know. We'll be back around 2 o'clock sharp, so make sure you cats at home don't touch that dial. That news made Aizawa do another double-take. Wait, what? Why are we extending the break? Present Mike cut his feed off against, giving his old friend a thumbs up. We've got bots on the way, Eraser. And Nezu's given them a bit of time to mingle with the students. Gotta build up that morale, ya know. HMPH, not exactly sure it's all that good of an idea for more of them to be coming here. Don't be such a worrywart. Now come on, let's go grab some food. I'm taking a nap, Suyu Asui couldn't help but fume a little as she and her team made their exit from the stadium. Unfortunately, the plan that Aoyama had come up with didn't work. In fact, they had somehow ended up losing their headband about 5 minutes in, somehow. So, they wouldn't be moving on to the second round, which was disappointing. Oh well, no sense crying over spilled milk. The frog girl thought to herself. There's always next year. And besides, it's better to root for your friends who did make it to the finals. So, she did just that, finding Mina not soon after. Congrats on moving to the final round, Mina. That was great. Oh, thanks Sue. Mina smiled, however, she also seemed a bit unsure. Though to be honest, Bakugo only asked me to join his group because I could melt Todoroki's ice. It's not like I really helped all that much in the cavalry battle itself, you know. Come on, Mina. May exclaimed, slapping her fellow Pinkett on the back. Mina had to keep herself from falling over as the Zoom quirk user gave her a bright grin. Don't sell yourself short. I saw you practicing for this festival for weeks, you deserve to go ahead to the next round, as far as I'm concerned. Mina was surprised, for sure, but also quite happy to hear those words. Thanks, May. Gotta say, your gadgets really got to shine in both rounds, so congrats on that. Can't wait to see how you'll use them in the finals. A mischievous grin formed on May's face as a conniving giggle escaped her lips. MMHMHMHM. Oh, don't you worry about that. I've got a great plan to show off my babies to all the big shot corporations. Zoom. And just like that, she was off to do whatever she needed before the final round. You'll see. Your support course friend is strange. Sue stated with a finger on her chin. Yeah, but she's a good kind of strange, the acid user winked. Meanwhile, Eijiro and Denki were both over by Tenya, the former grinning wildly while the other wore a much dopier smile. Dude, Iida, you were totally holding out on us. I had no idea you could go that fast. Wish I had gotten to see it in person instead on playback. Denki gave 2 dazed thumbs up in approval. Iida raised his hands in his usual stiff manner. Rest assured, Kirishima, it wasn't my intent to lie to you and keep that hidden. I was just being strategic, and I merely wanted to show that I could compete with Midoriya. Tenya glanced over and moved one of his hands over to Denki's head, giving it a quick chop. Also, Kaminari, pull yourself together. This is quite unbecoming of you. Ah. Denki gasped as his head was cleared in an instant. Woo. Sorry, Iida. Guess I really couldn't hold it together. His lips curled in frustration and he stamped his foot. Damn, maybe I need even more training, then. Eijiro gave him a nudge in the arm. Don't sweat it, bro. I know you'll get a hand of your quirk eventually. He gave a sharp-toothed grin over to Iida as well. And man, I should have guessed you were gonna try to one-up Midoriya. You guys were pretty competitive out there. It was then that Mina piped up as well. Speaking of, I know that Momo and Keita went with Ochako and Ojiro to talk about that, but did anyone see where Midori and Kyoka went? In truth, however, Kyoka herself was asking a very similar question, though she was searching for Izuku specifically. She had no idea where he had been whisked away to, but she was fairly certain she saw Todoroki grab him and take him somewhere toward the side of the stadium. As she wandered the dark inner hallways, she came upon an offshoot that had light coming down, and on the corresponding wall, she saw 2 silhouettes. One had the messy hair she was searching for, which was all she needed to see. But what she didn't expect to see was Katsuki Bakugo also sneaking around, silently stepping through the hall just across from her. Both of their eyes widened at the sight, but none of them dared to speak, otherwise they'd reveal their location. So instead, Bakugo kept his eyes wide open, pointing at her as if to ask, "What the hell are you doing here?" Kyoka sneered and pointed one of her jacks down the hall to answer, which made Katsuki grumble quietly. Like it or not, their goal was the same. He placed his back against the wall, glancing toward the hall as he jerked his head back toward the 2 boys. Same. With Kyoka also realizing they were after the same thing, she grumbled as well, but resigned to her fate. Damn him. Kyoka huffed and crossed her arms, keeping a close ear on whatever Izuku and Shoto were talking about. So, you brought me here. Izuku began. Now what? Kyoka could hear the trepidation in his voice, and when Shoto didn't respond immediately, he tried to switch the subject around. We should probably eat soon. The cafeteria's gonna be busy, don't you think? There was another long pause before Shoto finally replied. I was overwhelmed. Your strategy, your deception, I was so frustrated by it that I very nearly broke the promise I made to myself a long time ago. Kyoka wasn't sure what that meant, but she had a pretty good idea. This whole competition, he hasn't been using his left side at all. All ice, no fire. It would have given him a pretty big advantage in the cavalry battle, and yet. Iida and Kaminari, Yaoyorozu and Kiryu, even Jiro, none of them could have seen it. Not even you. Shoto continued. But as I stared at that headband, I felt the heat beginning to rise. It took all of my willpower just to keep it suppressed. In that moment, the frustration nearly made me lose my cool. The white and red-haired boy paused again, collecting his thoughts before moving on. Back during the obstacle course, seeing your power reminded me of something, and that was experiencing All Might's quirk back at the USJ. That made Kyoka's eyes widen and a chill go down her spine. Of course, she knew that was no coincidence, since All Might had chosen Izuku to be his pupil exactly because they had similar quirks. Still, this was dangerous. If Shoto suspected something, then that could lead to further trouble of him finding out about the Autobots. Izuku, you gotta say something here. Oh, yeah, okay. Izuku trailed off. Is that all? Kyoka facepalmed at her best friend's apprehensiveness. Not that. She could see Bakugo smirking across from her, which earned him a pointed glare. Of course, he returned it, which only made her more pissed at him. Todoroki sighed and elaborated, I'm saying that the power coming from you seemed similar to All Might's. Midoriya, tell me, the silence was palpable as Kyoka waited for the dreaded question, only to receive something that was far from what she expected. Are you really All Might's secret love child or something? She nearly lost it. Kyoka very nearly lost it. She had to keep her hand clamped over her mouth to keep her laughter contained, bending down to punch the floor as softly as she could. Even Bakugo was struggling to hold back his own laughter as well, and Izuku's response didn't help them much. What? No, really, that's not it at all. But I guess if it was, I'd totally say I wasn't, so you probably won't believe me no matter what, hee. Oh, you sweet summer child, Izuku. Kyoka smirked to herself. I am gonna remember this for a long time. Anyway, I promise, you've got the wrong idea. And, why would you even think that about me? Izuku didn't get an immediate response, but when he did, Todoroki pointed something out. That's not it at all, is interesting wording. It suggests that there is something between you two that you're not supposed to talk about. Both Kyoka and Izuku thought, crap. At the same time. My father is the hero Endeavor, you must have heard of him. Shoto stated factually. Which means you're aware that he's the number 2 hero. The young man's gaze narrowed at Izuku slightly, though not maliciously. So if you are connected to the number 1 hero, All Might, in some way, that would mean I have more of a reason to beat you. Further inside the stadium, meanwhile, the aforementioned number 2 hero of Japan was currently skulking his way down the stairway, seeing no need to wait up in the stands if this break was going to be extended by a whole hour. Better to not waste his time. As he made it down a flight and was about to start down a second one, a familiar and very vexing voice piped up behind him. Yo! Endeavor stepped, immediately feeling his ire being raised. Long time, no see. Let's catch up, Endeavor. All Might. The red-headed man snapped his head around, glaring at the symbol of peace as his flames flared up around his head and collar. It hasn't been that long. Well, fair point. All Might agreed. But in all honesty, our meeting at that place didn't really feel like a cordial affair. He extended a hand toward him. Besides, it still feels like I haven't properly spoken to you in over a decade since that Hero Council meeting. I saw that you were here, so I thought I'd stop and say hi. Endeavor huffed, turning his head back away from All Might. Did you, now? Well then, if that's all you wanted, we're done. He continued walking down the steps, grumbling to himself, HMPH, chatting like we're old friends. What a joke. Ah ha ha ha. The number 1 hero let out one of his signature laughs as he vaulted right over Endeavor, twisting around in midair before landing with his back toward his fellow hero, his arms out at his sides. Endeavor stopped just as All Might spun around. Come on, why the cold shoulder? You must be thrilled. After all, your son's doing very well out there using only half his power. You must be a great teacher. Are you implying something? Endeavor sneered. No, I want to know your secrets. All Might explained, his smile not faltering. How do we train the next generation of heroes? If anything, that answer just aggravated Endeavor all the more. Do you really think I'd tell you anything I've taught the boy? You're all flash and no brains as usual. Out of my way. With that, the redhead moved past All Might, making sure to firmly bump him in the arm along the way. All Might's smile became just a tad bit nervous, but abided by Endeavor's wishes. Okay then. Before he left, though, Endeavor stopped briefly, glancing at All Might over his shoulder. Let me assure you of one thing, All Might. Whatever it takes, that kid of mine will beat you someday. He smirked in satisfaction. I'll make sure of it. That is why I made him, after all. That was what caused All Might's smile to disappear. You did what? He's in a rebellious phase right now, but he will take your place. Endeavor continued, ignoring All Might's question. You can count on that. The symbol of peace was then left alone, a chill having went through his body at Endeavor's words. How ironic. All Might. The blonde man perked his head up at the woman's voice calling out to him, only to realize that it was Arcee's holoform coming down the flight of stairs. Bulkhead and Bumblebee weren't far behind, either. Aha. I was wondering where you all were. Good to see that you've made it. Though I must say, I'm surprised that Optimus is only arriving now instead of accompanying you three. The 2 male robots in disguise were taken aback by the news while Arcee didn't seem to notice. Yeah, well, we weren't about to miss out on, wait, what? Didn't you hear? All Might's smile returned tenfold. Optimus and a few of your other comrades have arrived. He pulled his sleeve back to take a look at his watch. They should be finding a parking spot any second now. Bulkhead still wore an incredulous expression. Since when? Arcee's eyes flashed blue for a moment, her vision moving back to her robot optics for a moment to do a quick scan. Sure enough, she detected Prime, Strongarm, Sideswipe, Sunstreaker and Jazz within the area. Her eyes stopped shining and she folded her arms over her chest. HMPH, since now, apparently. And they have the nerve to not contact us about it. I hope at least Prime and Jazz have their holoforms ready. Oh, I'm sure they do. All Might waved off. Otherwise, they wouldn't have come. Now, why don't you three go and find them? I'll meet up with you later. Well, if you insist. Bulkhead agreed, moving along with the rest of the Autobots. We'll see ya around, All Might. All Might waved the trio off as they continued down the stairs. Bye for now. Once they were gone, though, his smile disappeared and he let go of his breath, reverting to his skinny form. With a thoughtful glare, Toshinori couldn't help but ponder on Eiji Todoroki's words. Endeavor, what the hell did you mean by, made him? Back down below, the exchange between Shoto and Izuku continued, all while Kyoka and Katsuki kept listening in. My old man is ambitious, he aims for the top. He used his power to make a name for himself as a hero. But he was never able to beat All Might, so the symbol of peace is living proof of his failure. Shoto's eyes shifted to the side, watching as students made their way to the cafeteria. He's still at it, though, trying to take down All Might. One way or another. Izuku still wasn't too sure what Shoto was talking about, though. I still don't really know what you're getting at. What are you trying to say, Todoroki? There was a long pause, the hesitancy on Shoto's face quite clear to Izuku. But, after a couple seconds, Shoto answered. Have you ever heard of quirk marriages? The term made Izuku's eyes widen, which told the scarred boy all he needed to know. They became a problem in the first few generations after superpowers became widespread. There were those who sought potential mates solely with the intention of creating powerful children. Oh my god, Kyoka thought to herself. She could tell that Bakugo's interest had been piqued as well, though he only spared a glance. Don't tell me. Many people were forced into relationships. They were simply viewed as old-fashioned arranged marriages. But clearly, it was unethical. Shoto's gaze hardened as he clenched a fist against the wall he leaned against. My father not only has a rich history of accomplishments, but plenty of money to throw at his problems. He bought my mother's relatives to get his hands on her ice quirk. And now, he's raising me to usurp All Might. Izuku's mouth fell open in shock. No way. I knew Endeavor wasn't the most righteous of heroes, but this. Kyoka, however, was thinking much more unsavory thoughts. That damned bastard. I knew I didn't like that asshole from the moment we met him for a reason. It's so annoying. Shoto continued, keeping his head craned toward the floor. I refuse to be a tool for that scumbag. In every memory of my mother, I can only see her crying. He raised a hand up, covering the red scar over his left eye. I remember she called my left side unbearable, before she poured boiling water on my face. Hearing that, Kyoka and Izuku were left even more gutted, while Shoto simply looked back up at the ladder. The reason I picked a fight with you was to show my old man what I was capable of doing. Without having to rely on his damned fire quirk. You see, I'm going to show him that I reject his power, and I can take first place without using it. In that moment, everything started to connect for both Izuku and Kyoka. It was obvious that Todoroki could see that Izuku had a connection to All Might. So if he could beat Izuku without using his fire, that would serve to get under Endeavor's skin a lot. Still, both of them could see that this wasn't the healthiest way of dealing with that problem. The dude's probably mentally scarred big time from some of the crap Endeavor's put him through. Kyoka thought to herself, he needs a psychiatrist, not a rival. You're obviously connected to All Might, even if you won't tell me about it. Shoto concluded as he began to walk out into the sunlight, ending the conversation with reaffirmation of his goals. But no matter how fiercely you come at me in the future, I will defeat you using only my right side. I can assure you of that. Before he could get far, however, Izuku went after him, calling out, hey wait. Shoto stopped peering over his shoulder at the greenette. Further back, Kyoka was particularly interested in what was happening. Izuku seemed to be making a move of his own. I'm only here because others have supported me. I've been really lucky. Dude, come on, give yourself some credit. Kyoka deadpanned. In fact, I've had even more help since I've come to UA. Izuku's eyes went down to his hand, remembering all of the support that his friends, mentors and teachers had given him since he came to the school. His eyes filled with determination, he set his gaze straight to Todoroki. All Might is constantly saving people with a fearless smile. He's the greatest hero, and I wanna be just like him. In order to do that, I need to be strong enough to become number one. I know my motivation might seem stupid compared to yours, but still, I can't lose this either. I owe it to everyone who's supported me to try my best. Kyoka's lips curled into a soft smile at that. Well, as far as I'm concerned, I'd say that's a great motivation, Green Bean. She heard Bakugo scoff across from her, which earned him a narrow-eyed glare. Even if some people don't like to think so. You declared war on me earlier, well, right back at you. Izuku balled up a fist, raising it up as he and Todoroki locked eyes with one another. I'm going to beat you, I promise you that. There were a few seconds of silence after that before Shoto was about to walk off, but then, a new voice entered the conversation. Ahem, I hope I'm not interrupting something important. The two boys spun around and Izuku's eyebrows snapped up in surprise, and in her hiding place, Kyoka was also quite stunned at the familiar voice. She dared to peek around the corner, and sure enough, there he was. A tall, muscular Caucasian man who seemed to be in his early to mid-40s, with slicked back black hair that seemed to be graying along the sides. He had a bushy mustache and bright blue eyes, all while wearing a kind smile. He had on what could only be described as brawny man attire, a red flannel shirt, worn blue jeans, and brown work boots. All he needed was a woodsman's axe and he'd be set for being a lumberjack. Kyoka couldn't believe he was here. You've gotta be kidding me. Orion. Izuku caught himself before he said the wrong name. Oh Orion, what are you doing here? Well, I certainly couldn't miss the final round, could I? Orion replied as he walked up and gave Izuku a congratulatory pat on the shoulder. Excellent work getting into the finals, by the way. You've done us all proud, Izuku, as have your friends. Izuku rubbed his neck sheepishly. Thanks. You are very welcome. Orion's eyes went for Shoto next, who seemed perplexed. And you. You're the young man who's been in pursuit of my protégé's top spot, correct? I must say, you are quite talented. Shoto Todoroki, I believe your name was. Shoto wasn't too sure what to make of this man. He seemed American, that much was clear, or was he Canadian? He could swear he heard the tiniest bit of an accent, but he wasn't sure. Still, far be it from him to deny the man an answer. Yes, I am. He bowed politely. A pleasure to meet you, sir. Wait, did you say that Midoriya is your protégé? That's correct. Orion placed a firm hand on Izuku's shoulder, giving him a reassuring smile. I've been helping him get a hang of his quirk for the past few weeks. It hasn't been easy, though, that much is for sure. So, you're the reason that he can move so fast. Oh, he can do much more than that, young Todoroki. Orion said with a knowing grin. Trust me, you'll see what Izuku can do in the finals. But as for you, I will say that your skills are very impressive. I would like to extend a hand of invitation for you to learn under me as well, but, I have a feeling that your father wouldn't appreciate it. Shoto's brow furrowed. You know him. Orion's expression grew slightly distasteful. We are acquaintances. I know him well enough to know that he does not like people interfering with his personal life, and I'm sure that involves you in some capacity. Well, as far as I'm concerned, he probably shouldn't make me so personal. Todoroki briefly bowed his head again before turning on his heel to make his way to the cafeteria. It was good to meet you, sir. If you'll please excuse me. In his head, though, Shoto was beginning to question a few things with this man's presence. Wait, is Midoriya connected to All Might, then? If this guy is his mentor, then why do I keep seeing him with All Might all the time around school? Does he have two mentors? Is one his dad while the other is his mentor? Does he have two dads? His eye began to twitch a bit as the information practically overflowed in his brain. Ow, this is too frustrating. Izuku simply watched as Shoto skulked off, leaving him and Orion with one another. Well, that went much better than I expected. I take it that you and he just finished with a rather serious conversation. The disguised Autobot leader guessed. Why yeah, you could say that. Now that's an understatement. Ah. Izuku yelped and whirled around, only to see Kyoka smirking behind him. Kyoka, seriously. The girl snickered at her best friend's usual jumpiness, only to give him a nudge with her elbow. Ah, come on celery stick. You know you like it when I spook ya. Keeps ya on your toes, am I right? Izuku gave a heavy sigh, slumping his shoulders. I swear, you're gonna be the death of me. If anything, that just made Kyoka burst out laughing, though Izuku's demeanor turned serious when he realized what Kyoka had said. Wait, how much of that conversation did you hear? The punk rocker abruptly stopped laughing, sending him an apologetic gaze as she pointed to her earphone jacks. Everything, right? Sorry. Kyoka lowered her head shamefully. At first I only wanted to find out where Todoroki had carted you off to, but, well, I was pretty shocked at what he had to say. I couldn't stop myself from listening in. With an understanding smile, Izuku nudged her back. Hey, I get it. Trust me, I was pretty shocked to hear all of that, too. I don't blame you for wanting to listen, Jay, just so long as we don't go blabbing about this to everybody. Oh, no, trust me, that secret is safe. Kyoka assured. It's probably not a good idea to keep it secret, but I've got a feeling that Endeavor would probably seek us out if his son's story got leaked. Then we'd be the ones he throws money at, in court. Optimus hummed in contemplation, placing a hand to his chin. It is quite a conundrum. Endeavor would surely take action against us if this were brought to light, though I'm not sure that young Shoto himself would appreciate us telling it either. He received a pair of incredulous stares from the teens, which made him realize he had confessed to hearing the secret as well. Oh, right, my apologies. I overheard it as well. Izuku threw his head back, covering his eyes. Is there anyone who wasn't listening in? Bakugo was. Kyoka admitted, making Izuku's eyes bulge out of his head. He was across the hall from me. I didn't want to risk starting something and revealing where we were, so, yeah. The One for All inheritor gave a sigh, trying to calm down. Alright, okay, I don't think we have to worry about Kacchan telling anyone either. He received a questioning look from Kyoka at that. Think about it, what's Kacchan's usual demeanor? Apathetic. Right, so he probably won't care about it either way. Optimus was rather surprised by that answer, but considering all that he had heard about young Katsuki Bakugo, it certainly made sense. Well, if that is the case, then I think it's time we move on from this topic. After all, we would not want prying eyes and ears hearing us talking about this out in the open. The two teens nodded up to him as they all began walking toward the cafeteria. Now come, I told Sideswipe, Sunstreaker, Strongarm and Jazz to meet RC and the others at the main building. That made the duo do a double take. Huh, wow, I guess you guys meant it when you said you'd probably stop by later. Kyoka mused. Do you have seats for the show? Izuku asked. A small grin came to the Prime's human features. Oh, I think you'll find that we have some rather good seats thanks to Principal Nezu. He spared no expense in getting us some prime spaces. Izuku and Kyoka stared at Optimus in silence as they walked the rest of the way, coming to terms with the fact that the leader of the Autobots just made a pun. The moment they made it to Lunch Rush's cafeteria, Optimus separated from the duo so that they may retrieve their food of choice. Which they were incredibly thankfully for, since the first two rounds had left them considerably hungry. Once their trays were filled with their chosen meals, they quickly set off in search for their friends, but not before someone tried making conversation with them. Hey, Midoriya and Jiro, right? The first place champs. The two turned their heads, only to be left put off by the presence of one Hitoshi Shinso, his tired gaze and conniving smirk boring into them. Congrats on keeping your top spot. Can't say for certain if you'll win the whole thing or not, though. Kyoka's gaze hardened while Izuku seemed a bit more hesitant to answer, but they both began to speak nonetheless. Or rather, they would have spoken if a hand hadn't clamped over Kyoka's mouth, while a large, muscly tail covered Izuku's. To their immediate left and right, they saw Ojiro and Ochako, the two glaring directly at Shinso. Hold it right there, Ojiro warned. Not one word, Kyoka. Ochako said as well, her eyes never leaving Shinso. So that's how it is. Shinso closed his eyes as he began walking off. Well then, I guess I'll just speak to you when we get to the second round. See you later, teammates. Once he was gone, Ochako and Ojiro let go of Izuku and Kyoka, sighing in relief. Phew, that was close. But Kyoka spun around to the brunette, wearing an incredulous stare. Ochako, what the heck? I was about to give him such a verbal rundown. You know how good I am at that. Ochako's brow furrowed at her friend with utmost importance. Kyoka, I know, and I'm sorry. But believe me when I say that it is dangerous to talk to him. Yeah, you guys nearly became his puppets. Ojiro affirmed. But the green and purple duo were still left confused. Whoa, guys, hold on. Izuku raised a hand. What exactly is? It's better if we explain it to you at our table. Ochako insisted, waving the two over to follow her. Come on, this way. She led them straight out of the cafeteria and into the courtyard outside, where there were several large tables had been set up to accommodate the large number of people. However, one of those tables were entirely taken up by a certain group of 1A students and their Autobot comrades. Sitting at the table, Tenya, Momo, Mina, Eijiro, Denki and Mei were already sitting and chatting, with the surprising addition of Keita being there as well. Along with them, they also saw Optimus, Bumblebee, RC, Bulkhead, Sideswipe, Sunstreaker and Strongarm's holoforms as well. Sideswipe, or Sid, as he had taken to calling himself in his human form, noticed their approach and waved them over. Hey, the gang's all here. About time, too. Sunstreaker, or Sunny, added. We were wondering what was holding you guys up. Hey, we had to get lunch, sue us. Kyoka deadpanned, only to notice a new guy there as well, though she could pretty easily guess who it was. The blue shades gave it away, but so did the man's rather cool demeanor and white, zip-up, hooded jacket with blue and red striping down the arms. He was African American and wore black jeans with white sneakers, his black hair styled into long dreads that were tied back into a ponytail. Kyoka smiled at her friend's rather fitting appearance. Well, I gotta say, that is quite the fit. With a wry smile, Jazz lifted the collar of his jacket to show it off. What can I say? Yo, boy Jeff knows how to make a fit work, Kyo. Kyoka and Izuku sat down next to him, the punk rocker raising an eyebrow at him as she whispered, Jeff. Really? Yeah, as in, DJ Jazzy Jeff. The lieutenant clarified. I am when I was searching up human names, and damn was he a good artist. He and that will guy made some magic, and I'll die on that hill. The girl gave a nod, not even hesitating to agree. Now that, I cannot deny. She set her gaze across the table to Keita, who had glanced up from her meal after they had arrived. So, Keita, I take it that you've been introduced to, the gang. The Soro Parts user gave a short laugh. Huh, yeah, sure have. Iida was kind enough to give me the rundown of all your friends here. Gotta say, I've been wondering where you guys have been going after school every day for the past couple of weeks, but, I have to admit, I didn't think you were being mentored by all of these guys. Ojiro sat down near the green-haired boy, nodding in agreement. Yeah, no kidding. To be honest, and please don't take this the wrong way, Midoriya, but, I honestly didn't expect you to have so many friends, both in and out of school. Izuku merely blinked at the tailed boy's statement, though it was evident that Kyoka took more issue with it than he did. Ojiro raised his hands and quickly explained, I mean, it's cool, don't get me wrong. But considering how you were at the start of the semester, I thought you'd be more of an introverted type. Izuku guessed, putting on an understanding smile. Why yeah, I actually kind of am, honestly. He scanned his eyes across the table, making sure he met the eyes of human and Autobot alike. Brian, in particular, sent him a thumbs up. But a lot of that changed when I came to UA, really. I used to be a bit of an outcast in middle school, but since coming here, I've come across a ton of nice people. It's almost night and day in comparison. Sadie bowed her head to Izuku from across the table. And we're incredibly honored to be your friends, Izuku. Tenya stood up and raised his hand. Indeed, quite happily so, Midoriya. He reached across the table to shake his friend's hand. And once again, congratulations on your performance so far in the festival. You've proven to be a worthy adversary. Ah, thanks, Iida. Izuku shook his hand, though he made sure to nudge his head toward Kyoka. Though I've gotta give credit where it's due, I wouldn't have made it this far if it wasn't for Kyoka. Her quick decision-making is part of what got us where we are. Kyoka's cheeks heated up at his words, the punk rocker twirling one of her jacks around her finger. Oh, come on, it's not that big of a deal. I've just been doing what comes naturally to me. Heat of the moment type stuff, you know. I wouldn't sell yourself short there, Kyo. Jeff waved off. You and Izuku over there have got a really good tandem going on. I can't wait to see what you guys do in the final round. The teenagers all shared a somewhat awkward look before Tenya cleared his throat. Ahem, yes, well, about that. Jiro and Midoriya can't really keep their teamwork going in the last round. Mina finished. The Autobots at the table all seemed incredibly stunned by that revelation, with Buck being the one to ask, what? Why not, Mina? 'Cause the last round is a one-on-one tournament. Jiro explained. It always is. The top 16 get put into brackets and duel one another until the final two meet in the last round, where the definitive winner of the sports festival will be decided. Mei said as she continued to tinker with her jetpack, dumping out sand as she did. It's like that every year, but the form of contest always changes. For example, last year was a foam sword competition. Denki added, placing hand to his chin thoughtfully. I wonder what this year's gonna be like. Strongarm, or rather, Stella Armstrong, gave a short chuckle at the sound of that. Hey, well it's a good thing that we trained your quirks into exemplary form over the past 2 weeks, then. She gave Iida a thumbs up of her own. But don't worry, no matter where you guys end up placing, I know that you'll all be able to make a lasting impression. Just do your best and we'll all be rooting for you. I could not have said it any better myself. Orion concurred, him being the only one standing. Izuku nodded as well, though his gaze grew curious as he craned his head toward Ojiro and Ochako again. So, why didn't you guys want us talking to Shinso? Kyoka's brow furrowed at the two as well. Yeah, I was about to give that guy a piece of my mind. Not gonna lie, he kinda deserves it for whatever he put you through. The blonde and brunette's eyes shifted over to Momo and Keita, the four of them having talking things over prior to everyone's arrival. That's actually a fairly major concern, guys. Momo explained, catching Kyoka and Izuku's attention. If he tried to speak to you, it'd be a major problem if you guys had responded to him. We got a feeling that's how he activates his quirk. Keita added, sneering in displeasure. The dude talks to you, and the second you reply, your mind is putty in his hands. The duo's eyes widened at the revelation. Whoa, so wait, he's a brainwasher. Izuku gaped in astonishment. Damn, I didn't expect someone with his kind of quirk to be at UA. Kyoka admitted. Usually, a quirk like that would lend itself more toward, well, being a villain, if I'm being blunt. Orion hummed in contemplation. Indeed, it is quite puzzling. He set his gaze upon his Autobots, who all returned in kind. We have had our share of encounters with brainwashers before, and very few of them have been on our side. There was this one villain that we come across. Buck continued, being careful to choose his words correctly. His name was Bombshell, and he had the ability to create these little things called neuroshells that attached to your head and took control of your neurological functions. He'd control heroes and civilians like puppets to do his and his team's dirty work. Izuku swallowed, his throat suddenly very dry. Whoa, that's crazy. His eyes went straight back to Ojiro and Ochako. Could we even beat something like that if any one of us ends up facing him? Ochako pursed her lips at that. I'm not so sure, but the best way we could counteract that is by not giving him the chance. She pointed a finger toward her head for emphasis. He didn't get into my head until I answered a question he asked me before the second round. I think that's the secret behind his power. HMPH, so we'll have to be careful not to say anything, or else we'll lose for sure. Kyoka concluded. Not necessarily. Ojiro shook his head. Even if he gets you, there's still a chance. His expression hardened as he recalled the vague memory. For round 2, I don't remember anything at all except the very end of the battle. I think we were running away after Shinso took Tetsu's headbands. He closed his eyes, trying to remember everything as clearly as he could. I bumped into someone else, and the brief impact was enough to jolt me awake somehow. I was me again, and I was suddenly able to think clearly. Momo tapped her chin at the information. So the bump broke his hold over you. Maybe, it's only a guess. Ojiro admitted, closing his hand into a fist. I still don't know how much of a shock it would take to break his spell. And in a one-on-one match, you can't count on an outside force intervening to help. He wore a sheepish smile as he rubbed his neck. Anyway, I hope that helps, because that's all I know. Oh, it's more than helpful. Izuku assured. Thank you very much. Kyoka gave him an approving nod. Yeah, you're a cool dude, Ojiro. Thanks again. She pointed at him with a wink. And hey, if you get lucky and end up facing him in the tournament, you can always use your own strategy against him, right? Yeah, I guess. Ojiro's eyes shifted awkwardly down to his plate of food, feeling uncertain about proceeding to the final round at all. I know what I have to do, then. Eijiro suddenly piped up again. Well, either way, I'm super pumped for the final round. He clenched his hands with a big, eager grin. I watch these finals every year, and now I'm actually in them. He went to stand up from his seat, pumping his fist into the air. Time for us to show what we're made of, oof. Without missing a beat, Sid stood up and put his arm over Eijiro's head, bonking him and bringing him back down into his seat. Alright, dude, let's not get too pumped up. I know you're excited, but remember to save some of that energy for the tournament itself. Hey, right, sorry. Wow, aren't you all just balls of energy today? The sound of another female voice caught the group off guard, bringing their attention toward the right side of their table. The kids and Autobots had to do a double take at who was standing just 5 feet away, none of them expecting to see them of all people there. Hey guys. Marissa greeted, with Burns standing next to her, supporting himself with a crutch. How's it going, everyone? Jacob greeted as well. Agent Fairborn. Orion said, the commander also quite surprised. Agent Burns. What brings the two of you here? Marissa bobbed her head to the side with a bright smile. Oh, we both just wanted to see the kids in action, just like you. She placed a hand to her chest. Though to be completely truthful, I'm actually here to provide some help for my old medical school teacher, Recovery Girl. Marissa glanced down to Izuku in particular. After all, if we get an influx of students hurting themselves in this tournament, we want to make sure they're back in tip-top shape by the time it ends, right? Izuku felt a bead of sweat trick down his face, knowing exactly what Marissa was trying to tell him. Don't recklessly break your bones, kid. He gave her a curt nod as he returned to his meal. Why yeah, right. Yo, Burns, how's your leg? Kyoka asked, eyeing the cast that covered the appendage. Looks pretty bad. Oh, no need to worry, Kyoka. Jacob assured with a wave. This is only temporary. By tomorrow, I should be back on my feet. He nudged his head over to Marissa. But hey, doctor's orders, and she's dragging me with her today to make sure I follow him to the letter. He took a quick glance around the area before hobbling over to Orion, whispering, but Prime, you sure it's a good idea for you to be here? What if, you know who tries anything? But Optimus shook his head. I doubt they will, Agent Burns. If their orders are as strict as I believe, then they wouldn't risk exposing themselves with all the media coverage of this event. The whole world would know about us, and that isn't what Meg wants right now. Burns had to hold back a snicker at Optimus referring to Megatron as Meg, but that was the code word they had decided on. HMPH, right. Well, here's hoping it stays that way. As the two talked, though, Keita couldn't help but share a smile with everyone at the table. Man, you guys certainly do have a lot of friends. You'll have to introduce me to everyone fully when we get the chance. Keita didn't notice as she went back to her bowl of rice, but the others all wore rather nervous smiles at that. Man, if any more surprises come up, it might be too much for me to handle. Oh really? You sure you can't handle at least one more surprise? The sound of yet another new voice took everyone off guard, though none more so than Keita. The gray-skinned girl's mouth hung open as her grip loosened on her chopsticks, the wooden utensils falling to the table as she slowly put her bowl down. No, Keita abruptly stood up and whirled around, making everyone at the table gasp. It can't be, ah. A gasp escaped her throat at the sight of the person before her, her hand covering her mouth in shock. There, standing about 10 feet away from the table, was a young man who seemed to be in his early 20s. He had an athletic build to him, and his skin was tanned by the sun. He had shaggy black hair that went down to the nape of his neck, and his attire consisted of fur pelts, which lowered torso and thighs, as well as his forearms. He wore sandals on his feet, and his white armor on his upper torso was molded to resemble bone. His right shoulder pad in particular resembled a mammoth skull, complete with tusks, and he wore a helmet that looked like a smilodon skull. He gave Keita a knowing wink. "Well, I told ya I would be here, didn't I?" The others were left confused as to who this was, all while Keita seemed like she was ready to break down in tears. Kiryu," Izuku asked. "Who is Iniki?" Keita exclaimed as she bolted toward the man, enveloping him in a big hug. "You came. Oh my god, you really came." Everyone at the table was left stunned by what she said, though the Autobots were still a bit confused. "Wait, Iniki?" Sunny asked. "Is that his name?" "No," Mina muttered. "Iniki is a Japanese word. It means." All of the 1A students at the table echoed one another as the revelation hit them: he's her older brother. The man gave a laugh as his hug on his little sister loosened, giving the students and adults a salute as Keita turned her head back around. "Haha. Yep, sure the Pleistocene hero, Ice Age, is at your service." And it's the end of Season 2 Part 13 of this What If. I hope you guys like it. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment down below and subscribe to the channel.